and the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the haughtiness of man shall be made low, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day, and the idols shall he utterly abolish, and they shall go to the holes of the rocks, to the caves of the earth, for fear of the Lord, for the glory of his majesty, when he arises to shake terribly the earth.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. Right. Continuing today in the book of Genesis. We're in chapter 32. We'll read the whole chapter. We already discussed the first couple verses. And we're going to begin at verse 3 after we read. And Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's host." And he called the name of that place Mahanaim. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother unto the land of Seir, the country of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, "Thus shall ye speak unto my lord Esau. Thy servant Jacob saith thus, I have sojourned with Laban, and stayed there until now. And I have oxen and asses, flocks and men servants, and women servants, and I have sent to tell my lord, that I may find grace in thy sight." And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him." Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him, and the flocks and herds and the camels, into 2 bands, and said, If Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. I need you to bear with me 1 second here. Thank you. We're back. And the fan has been touched. It's coming back already. Not. Okay. All right, great. We jumped over here somehow. All right. Verse 8, I believe, right? Yes. And said, If Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord which saidst to me, Return to thy country, and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. I am not worthy of the least of all thy mercies, and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become 2 bands. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me, and the mother with the children. And thou saidst, I will surely do thee good, and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. And he lodged there the same night, and took of that which came to his hand a present for Esau his brother, 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their colts, 40 kine, and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses, and 10 foals. And he delivered them into the hand of his servants, every drove by themselves, and said unto his servants, Pass over before me, and put a space betwixt drove and drove. And he commanded the foremost, saying, When Esau my brother meeteth thee, and asketh thee, saying, Whose art thou? And whither goest thou? And whose are these before thee? Then thou shalt say, They be thy servant Jacob's. It is a present sent unto my lord Esau. And behold, also he is behind us. And so commanded he the second and the third, and all that followed by droves, saying, On this manner shall ye speak to Esau, when you find him. And say moreover, Behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goeth before me, and afterward I will see his face. Peradventure he will accept of me. So went the present over before him, and himself lodged that night in the company. And he rose up that night, and took his 2 wives, and his 2 women servants, and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford Jabbok. And he took them, and sent them over the brook, and sent over that he had. And Jacob was left alone. And there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh. And the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint, as he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaketh. Let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, What is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed. And Jacob asked him and said, Tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, Wherefore is it that thou dost ask after my name? And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. And he passed over Penuel, and as he passed over Penuel, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel eat not of the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh, unto this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh in the sinew that shrank. Sounds to me like he had a mean groin, like something. But he always limped after that. Well, Jacob has the plan. Well, first he sends the messengers, right, to Esau, to the land of Seir, which is the mount that is, a lot of times like an area will be named after a mountain, Mount Ebal, Mount Horeb, and then Mount Seir, in the country of Edom. Remember, we encountered already why his name was called Edom, because of the incident with the soup. Basically he meant, I want the stuff, and that's what Edom means. But the land of Seir, the country of Edom, again, it's still Esau, this is one of those things where it shows me, like I've said all along, it's like, I can't imagine that Moses just wrote Genesis out of thin air. There had to have been pre-existing sources of information. Like when God spoke to him out of the burning bush, Moses had some idea of who Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were. Otherwise, I don't think there would be any meaning to that. Why would he say, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? And he'd be like, who? God of who? But he did not know the name. He did not know him by the name Yahweh. And they didn't, and apparently the children of Israel did not know that name, or at least he was not aware of it at that time. And but this, when it talks about the country of Edom, the land of Seir, that speaks to me, because it wouldn't have been known as the land of Edom just yet. You know what I mean? Meaning in Jacob's time. There are certain aspects of the story that seem obvious. They have to come from, just like the gospel, it had to be people who actually experienced these things. So I think that because Abraham had this encounter with God, and Isaac and Jacob, that They were the initial recorders of it. And then when Moses and the children of Israel came out, these things would be compiled. And because in Moses' day, when the children of Israel came out, there was a land of Edom to talk about. And that's interesting. And some of it's written, I mean, it's obvious. It's in part, it's written with a little bit of an outsider's perspective, because that is the way, they were strangers in a strange land. All right. And, okay. So, he says, hey, tell him how I've stayed with Laban. I was there till now. I have oxen. I have asses. I have flocks, men servants, women servants. I got a lot of stuff. I'm rich. And I have sent to tell my Lord that I might find grace in thy sight. I'm telling you that so that I could find grace, mercy. Jacob is in a bit of a, he has people, but he fears his brother. Remember, Esau was more of he was more of an outdoorsy kind of guy. You don't have to be, it doesn't mean that Jacob is weak by any means, notice. He wrestled with God. But Jacob has a lot more than himself to take care of here. He's got his family to think about. And so he's much more vulnerable. He's walking into Esau's home territory that he's familiar with, and so Jacob does not, know what might come. And the messengers come back and says, we came to Esau and he's coming to meet you. And he's got 400 men. That's not good. I don't think Jacob is necessarily misinterpreting Esau's intentions. I'm going to spoil. I don't consider it a spoiler because we know Jacob does not get killed or anything, right? Because there is a nation, Israel, to come. Neither are his children slain. We know that. So it's no spoiler to say, Esau isn't going to kill him. He receives him very well. And I put it down to Jacob, again, being very shrewd. The actions he takes, I believe, are based on his knowledge of his brother. So he knows his brother, he's coming with 400 men. Now, he's coming in strength. In part, now that's not good. It's not necessarily bad. Because he may come in strength. He doesn't trust Jacob. And from Esau's perspective, that's reasonable. How does he know that Jacob's not coming to steal his everything? And so he's not coming out friendly meaning alone, unaccompanied. He's coming out in force. 400 men. That's a significant group of guys. You got some people with you. 400 is, that's enough to do a lot of mischief. Even in the modern times, give me 400 men. What I couldn't do. That's why they're terrified of people organizing stuff. They always infiltrate that stuff because they know it doesn't take a whole lot. A very small number of people can, in those, and this is true in a lot of the wars we've tried to fight that were pointless because, like in Afghanistan and stuff, and Vietnam, because it doesn't take a lot of people to resist. It's one thing when you're talking about a state action where you can negotiate, but you're talking about people who are not willing to negotiate because you're on their land and all that. Anyways, but 400 men, if Jacob came with an army, a larger army, it wouldn't be much, but 400 men in a family dispute is a lot. A lot. And so he was afraid and distressed. He's like, okay, Esau's not exactly, Jacob wasn't not going to come with presents. He already had that. That's obvious from the way he's saying, I've got asses, I've got camels, I've got all kinds of stuff. And I'm saying that to you so I can find mercy in your sight. Is there something you'd like from me? You know, so he's hoping he'd get invited to wherever Esau is, or perhaps, he thought, I'll go see Esau. But Esau's coming out to meet me. That's not good. Because, again, if he stays put, that's a sort of a welcoming posture. But if he comes out, that's sort of like, what are you doing here? So he divides the people into two bands. He divides everything in half. He has one company and the other company. He figures that way at least I'll only lose half. If he gets to one, the other one can escape. And then he prays, O God of my father Abraham. Notice they don't have a word for grandfather. They still called him Father Abraham in the days of Jesus, right? And God of my father Isaac. The Lord which said unto me, Yahweh which said unto me, it is actually in the Hebrew. Yahweh which said to me, return to thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. You told me to do this. I'm not worthy of the least of all thy mercies. I'm not, isn't this what I say all the time? That every one of the fathers is dependent on God's mercy as much as we are now in Christ. They just don't have Christ yet. Christ has not yet died, though he died for them. Those who are of faith, who did not hear of, God is already giving them mercy. That's how it always has been. But through the blood of Christ, not only is mercy granted to the children of Israel, but also through the veil of his flesh, the enmity between Jew and Gentile is broken down. The fact that they are set against each other. And now it is Christian against the world. That's how it is. It used to be Jew against Gentile. Now it's Christian against everybody else. I mean, in a certain sense, it always is. Because, people, it doesn't necessarily mean, of course, when as Christians, we've always fought as our Lord demonstrated by speaking the truth, and by accepting the consequences. When we had no other choice. Jesus, like I said, when it was time to lay his life down, he laid his life down. But when it was time to skedaddle, he skedaddled. Okay? I always take that as a green light. If I can skedaddle, skedaddle. Don't get yourself killed. Don't get yourself killed. Don't do that. But, it can happen. And that's how we fight. I mean, I fight by laying my life down. I will cram my corpse so far up my enemy's nostrils, they will never get the smell out. As far as I'm concerned, I have no problem with that. But we are against the world, and the world is against us. However, there's no way you could see it otherwise. I mean, the world, as today, it's going in a completely different direction. And it always is. I mean, even in history, when we think about the good old days, you look back at the good old days, listen to what people were preaching in the good old days. They're preaching about how awful the good old days were. That's why a lot of times I say to people, it's like, for a long time I was saying things are pretty much the way they've always been. And I mean, like, you've had high levels of wickedness in the past. Now in our country, things have changed. Understandable. And things have genuinely changed. I was waiting for genuine changes, and they are now here. because I always grew up with people saying, but then I look back in history. I mean, there are very morally bankrupt times. And here's the thing, in every time there are very morally bankrupt places. I mean, there's Sodoms and Gomorrahs, sure. But when the whole society is, caught up in it, I mean, how is that much different than Rome? Are we different than Rome? We're not as bad in many ways. Rome, they were psychopathically murderous. I mean, feeding people to the lions. Not just feeding them to the lions, but like especially with their war captives, the absolutely horrific, just mind-bending ways they went about to torture people in a public spectacle to the crowd's cheer. We don't have anything quite like that just yet. Though we have plenty of people who would love such things. I mean, it. There are some people, some people like to watch scary or horror films because for who knows why. There's different reasons, right? Sometimes there's a lot of horrific things in the Bible you could read about too. But some people are attracted to it. I admit when I first took up the Bible, certain things attracted me more than others. I was much more like, I want to understand what these prophecies mean. Then I was worried about righteousness and holiness and about the things that I thought were, boring, because I thought Jesus had just dealt with all that. So there was no need for me to worry myself about things like doing the right thing because I was forgiven. All I had to do was believe in Jesus. That was, this is the way these things can percolate into the minds of those who are not instructed. You get that faith alone thought, and you can go to the wrong conclusion, especially because so many people in society will nurture that feeling along with you. You said this, I am not worthy of your mercy. None of us are worthy of the mercy God gives us. We labor to walk worthy of it. That is the fact that I desire and strive to walk worthy is pleasing to God. He does not require that of me for salvation can only come through his mercy, though those who take up that precious gift and say, well, I don't want to do nothing, you will find that the gift has slipped from your fingers because it does not, it's a weird thing. But like I said, it's hard because my mind begins to bend. It's like, well, Paul, how can you say it's not required? Is it not required? Don't you have to work? Well, it's kind of like James said, faith without works is dead. It's not that you need, the point is God looks at salvation as happening when he puts mercy on you. When he sends faith to you, you are saved because of his intention. The fact that you obey him is a matter of course. If you were disobedient, the truth is he had never intended to save you. If we are those who count the cross of Christ as an unclean thing and who do despite to the Spirit which has saved us, we say or claim, when we're wicked and slothful servants like that, all that is manifest of is the fact that we are only playing about the edges of religion and God is not in us. That's all that reveals, that there was no salvation work happening to begin with. God doesn't make mistakes. Yeah, he chose Judas, and one of you is a devil. He knew from the beginning Judas would betray him. It says so. He knew from the beginning who believed and who would betray him. He knew all that stuff. He knows the false faith. We don't fool him if we're fooling with him. I mean, I get fooled because I can't help it. I can't just judge everyone when they have, just errors and stuff. I have to see real malevolent and, it's like, it's easy. I got to see, there's a certain level of sin where we're supposed to not keep company, with certain people. But even so, having been a recipient of mercy, it is hard to not just want to show mercy to all, and that's one of the dangers, I suppose, is that, your compassion, your empathy can be used as a weapon against you. It already is being used as a weapon against you. That's what the whole argument about the homosexuality issue is really about, guilting Christians in many ways. Like it's our fault, that it's a sin. It always is a sin. Can't change that. Can't change it. You can't sanctify it with marriage. That's a lie. It's just a lie. It's just a lie codified by law. Now we have legal lies. You know what I mean? Now our country has stepped into dangerous dark waters. You think, oh, what's the danger? It's like, the danger, well, it's manifesting itself now. Welcome to Sodom. Welcome to Sodom. You're going to live in a totalitarian society where they come and tell your children what gender they are. And if you say anything about it, you go to jail. That's the world they want to build. Well, you submit your children to sexualization or you go to jail. And they think they have enough leverage that they're not hiding it anymore, which is fun because I think they've miscalculated on that front. I don't think it's going to fly. So I say, if we're entering towards the end times, whatever, this beast ain't flying. I don't know. I could definitely see deadly wounds appearing in this one, you know. I mean, as far as like, because there's no way without the power of a present Antichrist, they're going to be able to lift off any kind of beast. You need to have a focal point. And this is destined to fail. I mean, it has 7 heads and 10 horns, right? 10 crowns. There are 7 kings. 5 are fallen. One is one. The other is not yet come. Don't know what it all means, but I'll tell you what, there's got to be a king. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people who would like to be. Some people say there is, right? I remember people saying, look at, it'd be King Charles. Because people have said that the throne, since it is David's throne, right? If it's David's throne, well, then that's where Christ is supposed to sit. So we have someone sitting there, and they've been given over, right, to corruption. Certainly, but I mean that's common. I mean, how so many men are given over to corruption that it's like it doesn't really say much. All the truth which thou showed to thy servant. The things that are true, the right things. And I suppose those are the things, the promises fulfilled, I guess, because when they're promises, they're, but when they come to pass, they're truth. You said you'd deliver me. You said you'd bring me. You said this. You said that. And also, like I said, there is more to the story. Yes, I'm not a big read between the lines kind of guy, but there is always the subtext on that is that, it's not just these major encounters. He lives a daily life, Jacob. He lived in one chapter, like the other chapter, right? 31, 6 years went by. And we just 30, 40 verses. 6 years of breeding cattle. And then what does he do? Twiddle his thumbs in his spare time? What does he do while he's watching the sheep? What do they always do? They always meditate on his precepts. What precepts? What would he know? Well, I think he already did know. He wasn't a man of the field. He was a man of the tent. Which means educated. And he knows something about truth. Just because, okay. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan. Now I am become 2 bands. I don't know why he references his staff. I don't know. I guess the staff is the thing you lean on. Right? The point is, that's used in the prophets, like when Isaiah talks about, don't lean on Egypt, as they're comparing them to a staff. And I'm going to take this way, is that like I've relied on my own wits to this point, and now I'm divided. So deliver me, man. Deliver me from the hand of my brother. I'm pretty much divided in half, ready to lose half of everything. I passed over under my own power with my staff, leaning on my own strength. Here I am. I need now, because I think he references the staff because he's saying, I lean on you now. I need you to deliver me from the hand of my brother. Jacob is not coming over to do war with his brother. He does not want to do battle with him. He does not want to fight him. He's coming in peace. And Esau is showing signs of hostility. Deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me and the mother with the children. Pretty much it, all I have, all I've come to possess, my posterity, my children, my wives, you know. And you said I would surely do you good and make your seed as the sand of the sea. He's just reiterating God's promises. This is a wise thing to do. Well, I presume it to be wise because Jacob does it. I'm saying we are wise when you want something from God. Again, you have to ask it in the name of Jesus. You need it, and it can be as simple as, Lord, because I bear your name. Deliver me from this iniquity. I know you've delivered me from the guilt and from the stain of sin. But if I find something in me of corruption, I need God to deliver me from it. So I want to put him in mind that he said something along those lines. Put in mind, you said, I came to deliver or it is written in your word that Christ came to deliver the people from their sins. And you taught me that doesn't just mean that we don't think we sin with impunity. It means our sins are forgiven and we can walk in newness of life, not after the old ways. Yet if you have old ways, then where is the promise of God? Well, we need to invoke it. Now, God promised him things that he would make his descendants as numerous as the stars of heaven. That's the future. So he has to have faith and believe. But also it means that they can't all die there. So he's saying, deliver me. It's not the most full of faith prayer. Because we could say, I know you would deliver me. But again, we have wisdom that we've learned through Christ and through the Holy Spirit that they just didn't have access to. We understand more than the ancients. We understand more than our teachers. It's, or at least as much, right? Well, a servant, yes, a student can exceed their teacher until you get to the top, right? Until you come to the Holy Spirit, the teacher of teachers. He said, I will do you good, number your seed. He lodged there that same night and took of that which came to his hand a present for Esau. So of what had come to his hand, he took a present. What came to his hand means what he possessed. Of his possessions, he took a present for Esau. And this is significant. I don't know how much cattle he has, but significantly more. But this is a big present. 200 goats, she-goats, and then 20 he-goats, 220, and then 220 sheep. And we have milk camels with their colts, 30 milk camels with their colt, meaning they've got the little one. So 30 recently calved camels, 40 kine. It's another word for cows. But I think that it is female. And 10 bulls. 40 kine, 10 bulls. 4-to-1 ratio on that. What is it? 11-to-2 ratio on the other? Or 11-to-1 ratio? Sorry, not 11-to-2. 11-to-1 on the goats and sheep. And then on the cattle. 20 she-asses and 10 foals. So different draft animals and herd animals. And he delivered them to the hand of his servants. Every drove by themselves, and sent his servant, pass over before me, and put a space betwixt drove and drove. He's spacing these out. So first he's going to come across the she-camels and the he-camel, or the she-goats and the he-goats. And then 200 ewes, and then the 20 rams. I don't know if those are all together, but whatever. Definitely the camels separated from the bulls and the asses and all that. And so, space these out. And that'll make it seem like more. Everyone knows for Christmas, if you want to make it seem like a bigger deal, you wrap the number of presents wrapped up is actually more important than what's in them. And so Yeah, I mean, sending one big present, it can be disappointing in a way. Just send them all together and, oh, here's your present. It's like, but then first 200 goats. What a present. 200. Oh, and then 20 he goats. Sure, that's good. And they breed them and whatever. And then, the females are always more valuable in a certain, because they breed. And then comes the next present. And, and another present. Oh, and another present, another present. And he's like, and now he really butters them up that way. More so than if you gave it all at once. I certainly believe human psychology is at work here. And it's something Jacob instinctively understands, or from learning understands. Perhaps from experience. And so it's a present sent unto my... These are... He said, what are these? Camels coming. Because they're not out to kill animals. If they're going to kill anyone, they're looking to kill Jacob. Right? And so the animals come and... Well, he's going to receive the animals. There's definitely going to take them. These are Jacob's. It is a present sent to my lord Esau. Behold, he's behind us. And he's coming. And so the third and all that followed by droves, saying, you're going to speak to Esau like this. And he keeps saying, oh, look at Jacob. It begins to feel for Esau. And I don't know if maybe this is just, this may be one of those two halves, perhaps. I don't know what percentage of his stuff he's giving away here. I think it's significant. It seems significant to me. That's a lot of value. Even to this day, that would be a lot of money. You want to talk about 200 200 sheep. How many bulls was it? 10 bulls, 40 kine? 40 kine? I don't know how much a head of cattle goes for, but it's significant. Of course, and the price of cattle is artificially suppressed by the meatpacking industry, actually. Glad I'm not in the business, because I can understand it's pretty hard right now. So the prices are going through the roof at the supermarket. They're not going through the roof at the wholesale level, And that's because of the monopoly. All right. Well, the control, top-down control. Okay, so verse 20. Okay. And you say, moreover, behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us, for he said, I will appease him with the present that goeth before me. It makes sense. Afterward I will see his face, peradventure he will accept of me. After having all these presents from me, hopefully when he finally sees me, he'll be happy and accept of me. I think that means, I don't know. I don't know if that's a good, let's see, let's look at I can't do that. That's right. I can. I did, and this time I did not, I'm ready this time, other than having to put the code into the phone. That's probably a bad idea. So I have my thing here. Okay. But I wanted to check it in a different Bible version. So, wow, I don't know how they think this is good. The app is like on one half of the page. Are you kidding me? I don't know why it's like that. Okay, so the word, I want to just check up that verse. Verse 20. Let's look at it in like the NIV. Where's the Bible version? Gosh, I make this hard. I really prefer actually the online version. Let's check the Devil's translation, the NIV. And I'm kidding. But be sure to say, your servant Jacob is coming behind us, for he thought, I will pacify him with these gifts I am sending on ahead. Later when I see him, perhaps he will receive me. Maybe that of is just completely not necessary. Oh well. It does seem a strange addition there. Like that preposition doesn't seem appropriate. Okay. What time is it? 39. Okay. Okay. So hopefully he'll accept me the present over before him. He lodged that night in the company. And he rose up that night and took his 2 wives and his 2 women servants and his 11 sons, passed over the ford. And he took them and sent them over the brook and sent over that he had. So he had them pass over, and he was alone, last of all. And there he wrestled with a man with him until the breaking of the day. Suddenly, doesn't give much fanfare. I mean, I don't know what happened. Like, I think God just jumped him. Just jumped him. All of a sudden, they're fighting. That's pretty terrifying when you think about it. Not for Jacob, though, because he's fighting a man. He doesn't know at first he's fighting God. But he says later, that's what he thinks happened. I've seen God, not to mention wrestled with him. And it's very interesting, right? I mean, because it's like he wrestles with God. He wrestles with the Almighty. And he saw that he prevailed not against him. Like, God, remember, God here is he's like doing that whole, I'll wrestle you with one arm tied behind my back. He's taken human form, much as the Lord Jesus. And if you wrestled Jesus, he would not cheat. He would wrestle you fair. He isn't going to use miracle power to beat you in a wrestling match, because that's not fair. As long as you're, doing a fair wrestle. Not eye gouging and groin kicking, then all bets are off. Once you take it out of the, a friendly tussle, you start, cutting up rough. Obviously, a man's going to defend himself with whatever he needs to. Jesus' mission in life wasn't to get beat up. But they're having a wrestling match. I don't know what style, but some sort of, they're struggling. I'm thinking of like the good old fashioned wrestling. Probably comes down a lot like, just like not like, oh, you got to try to pin the guy. It's no, you're kind of struggling with each other to get control of the other person, right? And he can't get control of him. That's why I assume this prevail is to, to beat the other guy and make him quit. What in like folk style wrestling, if you pin a man, he's done, right? In submission grappling, when they say uncle, basically they tap out. And I would think this match was done along those lines. Like Jacob had to quit. He had to give up. You know what I mean? God has taken human shape, and he's good at wrestling. You bet. He ain't gonna suck at it. But Jacob is not to be deterred. He will fight with him and with any man in order to prevail. All right, let me just turn I'm just gonna get the screen changed over real quick while I fix that fan. I always like this story because I'm not sure what what does it mean? It is an interesting thought. What does that mean? I mean, there's a lot of meaning to it. But it's such an interesting thing that he wrestled with him. And, and in the context of his life, why just now? I remember I got the feeling, and this could be wrong, but when I was studying with Arnold Murray, I remember I had the feeling, I don't remember if he gave it to me, or if I, got from what he was saying, it was an implication I drew. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. That's all I'm saying. I hate to falsely represent what another man teaches. So I'm not saying he teaches this, but it felt like I had the sense at that time there was like sort of, are you a man? Why are you cowering? Your brother Esau, you're so afraid. Deliver me. What kind of man are you? Are you willing to fight? It's important. I tell you, I have all my children wrestle. They all wrestle. It's the first sport that's mentioned in the Bible, except for hunting, of course. Hunting is the original sport. Wrestling is when two guys are trying to kill each other, but for fun. It is essentially that you engage in the oldest sport of all, Cain and Abel. Of course, Cain was a cheater, and we always imagined that he came up behind, or that he was talking with him, so they were face to face. He killed him to his face. Give Cain that. Give Cain that. Remember, he did not. He talked with his brother and then rose up and slew him. So he did not lay in wait so much as he just went up to him, I guess, right? But I have them wrestle because I think it is important for children, especially in such a culture as ours that is soft. We live in a soft culture, a culture where they have everything. They have food enough, clothing enough, shelter enough, entertainment more than enough. And I see a lot of these kids. I have a child that's gone to public school now for a year or two, just one of them, and the older ones, because there's certain things, classes and stuff, such it's fine, it's just part-time. And I think they're mature enough. I'm not like against college per se. I mean, I am against college if you don't know why you're going there, because that's what happened to me. I didn't know why I was going there. I mean, I kind of had a reason to go there, but I didn't really want to do that. It was just like, you got to go to college. Of course you go to college, because you're supposed to go to college. And a lot of people go to college and they come out. I would have come out with a useless degree. I would have come out of college with a totally useless degree. I have a bachelor's in political science. Like, who the hell told me to ever do that? It was towards becoming a lawyer. And I didn't, but I got there. It was just a lot. It was going to be 4 years of pointless studying. I mean, literally just studying to get to law school. Yeah, and in a subject that's not particularly, political. My family didn't have money for me to just go off on a 7 or 8 year college binge. That was never going to work. Anyways, but kids are soft. I've seen these kids. A lot of them are soft and they've always been a bit soft, right, kid? I mean, it's not good. They're soft from having too much good in their life. I don't just mean they're smaller or weaker. That can be fixed. That's what I like about wrestling is that you're always wrestling someone your size. It's not like football. You don't have to be the biggest guy. We got little guys in little divisions. Guys who probably should stay off the football field. And I never have any of my kids play football anymore, even though I love the sport. I love to play it as a kid. It made me who I am in many ways. But it made me the man I am, I should say. It made me into a man. To help me develop into a man. And I think sports do that for young boys and girls. A girl, should also participate in sports and stuff. It's good for them. Athletic endeavors. The human body is meant to be in motion and stuff and to be active. And you don't develop properly without a high level of activity. You will look better physically. Your body will look more put together. And there's some genetic to that, but it's like everything can be built on, and the kids should be built. And I like wrestling because it makes them struggle. You are you got no one to blame. It's just you against the other person. There's no team to rely on. You rely on you in this situation. You got to learn, if you lose, you take it. If you win, that's you won. You win too. It's all, and it teaches them things that, like I said, I can't necessarily, I don't necessarily have the heart to put them into some sort of grinding labor around the house, or, meaning they will do in the name of sports things that are so hard, but will somehow be more rewarding than if they were just like work or something like that. That's why I do like it. And young girls, I said, someone once said, why do you let your daughter wrestle? You let guys touch her? I'm like, look, when they wrestle, they're not touching her. They're wrestling with her. And if they stop for a moment to think about touching some way they shouldn't, they're going to get beat. I've never had issues with the boys who wrestle. Most of them are serious. I always tell them, like, for the most part, those are the kind of boys I'd want my daughter to marry. Young men that are strong and have dealt with things and have learned to become men, yes, physically. It's an important part of being a man. And I said, you can't, people want to just dismiss it. But it shouldn't be dismissed. Your sons should be strong. It will help them get better wives. It does. And the same thing for the girls. Like I said, I don't want my daughter to be weak, and the first time a guy does try to touch her in an inappropriate way, her not know or be scared in any way that she can't take care of herself. She can take care of herself. I know she can, because I've seen her do it. And like I said, unless he's gonna have to be, like I said, it's gonna have to be very forceful, and in that case, we know that that's a crime. But you gotta be able to. But girls need to learn to be assertive. I was telling my daughter, I'm like, hey, they say, oh, this is rape, that is rape. Now, you know what? If you didn't scream, don't complain to me. If you didn't fight, don't complain to me. I taught you to fight. I taught you to make noise. You can stop it. You don't have to let that happen. No, I get it. Don't blame the victim. I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying, hey, victim, don't be a victim. If you're going to be a victim, make them beat the living crap out of you, or at least threaten to. Let's see. Get some evidence. Make sure they get in trouble for it. Make sure they know no. And you can start off. It really confuses a guy when you take your pants off for him and stuff like that, and then you say no. Don't play around. Don't be a fornicator. Don't pretend you're gonna fornicate and then change your mind to begin with. You know what I mean? That's courting rape. By being a fornicating girl, by making yourself available for sex, you are encouraging men to rape you. Not intentionally, of course, but by making that, and then, you might change your mind. Fine, change your mind, but you know what? You won't always, they're going to be in trouble, you're going to be in trouble, and I think you both deserve it. I have sympathy somewhat for guys who get in these weird situations, but it's like, if you were intending to fornicate, I don't have a lot of mercy for that. I don't. As far as like, I was fornicating and then she accused me of rape. That's what you get. That's what you get. Find a wife, and then you're not going to be accused of rape. Most likely. Sometimes things don't go right? If you got to marry the right girl. And you got to be the right guy. That's part of the thing. Find the right girl for you. You have to be the right kind of guy for that. You think the Lord's going to take some wonderful woman and give her to you? It's going to be a match. That's a good thing. Don't expect your spouse to be, better than you. I certainly think that's good advice. Because I've always tried to, we all should try to be better than each other, right? We all should try to take the high ground. And if we're all trying to get the high ground, maybe then we'll stay up out of the mud. He wrestled with and so Jacob wrestles with this man. I'm in favor of wrestling, period. Right? For kids. It's good. It can be, there's bad things. You got to be involved with your kids. That's the part of the thing. It's like, it's something for fathers to do with their children. Sons and daughters. It's not really a mom thing. You shouldn't just drop them there. You got to be involved. I not only do my kids wrestle, but I've coached them. And here's the thing. I started coaching it with them. And I didn't really have much experience except in like junior high. Because in high school I was on the swim team. I was a prima donna diver. Joke about that. But because I was a terrible diver, okay? I could do the dives, they just looked terrible. Because a 6'2", 15-year-old is not a very elegant creature, let me tell you. And certainly not me, with my big bones and giant head. So the Lord here, he wrestles him, and when he sees he doesn't prevail, when, he doesn't, I can't beat him using just normal human power. God came into a man form and says, all right, cracks his nose. All right, come on, bring it. Could you wrestle with God? I think he'd beat me. I'm not that good. Definitely not that good. Jacob, though, remember, he came out of the womb holding on to his brother's heel. He is a scrappy guy, right? And here he wrestles with God. And God can't get rid of him as a man. Limiting himself to a man's power. Just the mind of God wrestling. That's tough enough. Jacob, you can't beat him. Jacob's not exactly pinning him down because he doesn't. But he's not able to free himself either. So it's like they're in this wrestling match that's not ending. And when he sees that he prevails not, I'm just going to, right? He touches him in the thigh. In the hollow of the thigh. There we go. And that that to me, again, is that tender spot in there. It's a very tender spot. And it sounds to me like he had some sort of groin issue out of joint. Because it's out of joint could be, we think of bones out of joint, but you can have muscles out of whack. They can like detach and stuff. There can be all kinds of ways. I don't think I don't know. It doesn't say his hip. You know what I mean? Because I would think of an attachment injury at that spot, whatever. I think I'm making more of it than necessary, really, because, right, we don't need to, when we talk about attaching the thigh, hold on a second here. Okay. Meaning like, his thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. The hollow of his thigh was out of joint. What does that mean, out of joint? Oh, boo. I so much prefer having the internet. They're sending me something, so. At first I was worried, I'll get my whatever. It's like, who's going to get my password? I'll change it. All right. Strong's. His thigh was out of joint. Oh, I should have just left it on the NIV. I don't know why I didn't do that. I guess I wanted to see what the word was as far as in the... No, but I just want to see a different translation. And I'm not worried about which one it is. Oh, now here it says he touched the socket of Jacob's hip so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Okay. See, he touched the socket of his hip, so his hip was wrenched. But then, okay, therefore to this day the Israelites do not eat the tendon attached to the socket of the hip. See, it is the tenderloin, the tendon there. But I don't trust their translation because, again, it's a thought-for-thought translation. So now I got to go back to the Strong, to the King James, and see what the Strong says. Sinew that shrank. It's literally a vein in the thigh. What is the sinew? In the sinew. The definition is sinew, from an unused word. The sinew of the shank. Not that shrank. It's like, it's a nerve or vein in the thigh. Etymology dubious, unformative, blah, 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 blah. Wow, they say sciatic vein? Or now they say... Well, in the Brown Driver Briggs, they seem to imply that maybe he has sciatica from that. I gotta say, if he touched him in the nerve there and gave him sciatica, that sucks. Because I have that. Mine goes, I don't know. Interesting. I was just figured it was something with the tendon there. But whatever. It's not a critical thing, obviously. The hollow of his thigh was out of joint. Oh, that was the particular phrase I wanted to look at. Verse 25. Why do they do this to me? I don't like phones. Bible Hub, that's my wife. It's reflections. So inconvenient. And now it's taking forever to come up. Okay, there we go. Verse 25. Out of joint. That's what I wanted to see. Out of joint. To be dislocated or alienated. Okay, that's what that means. So I guess they took that idea of dislocation. They're like, look, it has to be his hip. And then they don't eat the sinew that is on it because he touched the hip out of joint, etc. I don't know. Because the idea of being out of joint, it could mean just out of sorts, you know what I mean? Like when you pull a muscle, it could be a pulled muscle there, a groin pull, or something like that. Because a groin pull can be painful and last forever. They cannot heal down there sometimes, and that's what happened to Jacob. So, anyways, God wounds him like this. Kind of, like I said, he's wrestling him fair until he's like, I gotta go. I gotta go. So, bing! There you go. How's that? Still feel like wrestling? Well, you know what, my buddy, whenever his groin goes out of joint, he stops, right? Get a Charlie horse. Whoa! Charlie horse, right? I think Jacob, he's like, nope. And he touches him. He's like, let me go. The morning's coming. And he says, nope, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Because he knows something's up. I think the moment he touched him, he might have realized, I'm not wrestling a man. Because up to that point, he has no idea what's going on, I guess. A man just starts wrestling with him. Like in a dream, you know what I mean? In a dream, you could be wrestling and you don't even ask why. You know what I mean? It might even have been. It doesn't say it was a dream, so he thinks it's real, and it is as real as you like. You know what I mean? I mean, that's like I said. I don't know how you differentiate on some level. If God is giving you a vision, that vision is as real as you like. I mean, you want to think of it as literal, real? Yes, go ahead, because it is. Even if no one else sees it. And he says, what is your name? And he says, well, I'm Jacob, heel catcher, usurper, or whatever. Was he usurper? Whatever. Yeah, truly his name Jacob. Because he has usurped me this time, these 2 times. Your name is no longer Jacob, but Israel. You're not the usurper, you're a prince. Because Jacob does imply one who, he's grasping at something, pulling after something he wants to possess that is implication not his. And the truth is, you know what? That which we seek is not mine. The souls belong to God. I want a soul that's going to live forever. I have to obtain that. And we should be like Jacob and not let go. You know what I mean? It's an analogy to faith also, that we must continue in the faith. We got to keep believing. I will not let you go until you bless me. He calls his name Israel, the Prince of God, or the Prince who prevails with God. I forgot the exact... Oh, good. It didn't close on me. I wish this would... I'm going to have to play around with this thing so it doesn't keep kicking me out. Receive a daily verse. Thanks for the interruption, by the way, Bible. They immediately... You get the app and then like, oh yeah, while you're studying, here's something you don't want to study. All right, so Israel. Well, it says it's a strong. I'm in a bad spot here. Okay, there we go. It said it was Strong's, but it wasn't. Israel, and it means God. Oh, Yisrael. Oh, God strives. I had that wrong. From Sarah and L. Interesting. Israel. That's interesting. God strives. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and has prevailed. So the name itself, I think I was remembering parts of the verse where he names him as being part of the definition of the name. And but that's not right. It's God strives, which is so somehow it's related to a prince. What is the word prince in Hebrew? I wonder if I get that good old hover definition in this one. And I really hate doing this, but I don't know. As a prince hast thou power. Oh, that's Sarah. To persist, to exert oneself, to persevere. That's interesting. Do you realize that whole phrase this has got to be wrong. I'll have to look into that. Because it just... it's taking me to a different Bible version now. All right. Well, that's pretty much the... Once they start putting me... I'm lost. Now I'm lost. They got me in I kept going back. Forget it. That's a real annoying thing because I really depend on that Bible Hub for the research material. But hopefully, I don't know, maybe the package will come today. And I'll have my... we'll be back to streaming live. I definitely do not like doing this not live. It feels strange. But anyways, so we're going to pick it up here at verse 28 tomorrow because I don't think I've said enough about it, but our hour is up and we got to move along here. So he named him Israel because as a prince hast thou power with God and with men and hast prevailed. And that's saying you've prevailed with God. It's something to think about. I don't feel like I can just walk away from that. So we'll talk about that a little more tomorrow. Thanks for joining me in this study. Look forward to being back again tomorrow, Lord willing.
And the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the haughtiness of man shall be made low, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day, and the idols shall he utterly abolish, and they shall go to the holes of the rocks, to the caves of the earth, for fear of the Lord, for the glory of his majesty when he rises.